Hi, everybody. Welcome back, Coach's Corner. So this was Mike's idea to talk about this month, which is this age-old sort of paradigm of if you're a recruiter and you've got two crappy jobs on your desk, and you know they're crappy at some level, you can fool your boss, but you got two crappy jobs, and chances of filling these are not great, so I should probably just make some BD calls and get a better job. And then you don't. And so the question is that right? Is that wrong? Is it sort of right? Is it sort of wrong? Where do you find the energy to walk away from it? So Mike, this was your idea. So I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a second, just to make it work a little bit this morning. So if I'm that recruiter, and I once was, here's the rationalization in my head. Okay, statistically, I have a better chance of filling these crappy jobs than I do of doing hundreds of outreaches where nobody gets back to me to try to get a new job order. So I kid myself that if it's a numbers game, the numbers make more sense. I mean, they're going to hire someone. It might be my people. The tough ones are the crappy jobs where they're willing to see your people. So it gives this illusion of activity. And by the way, most of these recruiters are living in a culture where they're pressured to get sendouts and pipeline. So they know at the end of the day, they're going to get a pat on their head if they say, hey, boss, I got 3 sendouts today, and less of a pat on their head if they say to their boss, hey, you know what? I'm going to abandon ship on those 2 crappy jobs. I'm starting from scratch, so I probably won't make a placement this month, but I'm doing the right thing, right, boss? And the boss goes, yeah, I guess, but your pipeline, by extension, is your boss's pipeline, and they don't seem as happy about it as when you say you have 3 sendouts. So all this to say, I sort of get where the recruiter's coming from when they make the decision to continue working the crappy job order. So let's deconstruct that. Why is that stupid? Why does that start?
There's 4 or 5 layers in that. It started off with a simple one that I was ready to just jump down your throat on, and then you added a lot of real world complexity.
That's what we do.
So, let me open up with this. This is just serendipity. Crelate did a conference, I think last week. I was one of the speakers, and then there was a panel of 3 people, and I know 2 of them really well: Todd Dawson and Jen Meyer from Govis Associates.
Great people.
And so I just sat in as a student, and this ties into this. They went from 85, because they were talking about softness in the economy last year. They went from 85 people, not recruiters, 85 people in their company to 55.
Yep.
And they grew revenue $2 million.
Yeah.
And so she didn't say how, right? So I'm sitting there going, I put in chat, did I hear you correctly? 85, 55 and grew 2 million. She's like, yeah. I go, what was, if you had to give 1 or 2 things that changed the game for you? She goes, we stopped working crappy job orders. Almost that exact words, Danny.
Yeah.
And we can all see it. We know, oh, okay, that makes sense. I don't have to go say more on that. I know exactly what that meant. Now, you had 2 things. If a crappy job order yields sendouts with hiring managers, not talent acquisition, right? That's not a crap necessarily. I'm not going to go crap. I'm going to go B, right? If I got hiring manager contact and I got first time interviews and maybe the fee's crappy and it's not exclusive, all right. You're a tenured guy. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put that one aside, because first time interviews, we noticed even with people that work crappy job orders, if their ratio is 7-1, their ratio stays 7-1, varies by a half a point. But okay, you're ranging 3, you do that every week, you're going to make 1 or 2 placements this month. On the second point, if it's a truly crappy job order, I can probably show them that it's got a 90% likelihood of going unfilled.
Mm-hmm.
Because even straight contingency is 80.
Yeah.
4-1, right? 5-1. And when they're saying that, that's what nobody's calling, right? Nobody's calling you with a job order.
Right.
We also have, and we've covered this in other podcasts, data that we know that if you make a concerted effort on I'm not saying all your life should be outbound phone calls. This is combined with all the other things we do with emails and LinkedIn. But we know if you spend an hour on the phone, you'll make about 22 attempts, and you'll talk to 4 to 5 hiring managers. We just statistically we know that. So if it takes 15 to get a job order, in 3 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours, worst case, you'll have a search.
Right. Right.
How long are you going to work on that piece of shit? Excuse my French. This is PG-13 podcast.
I think the thing though, Mike, is I agree with you 100%. We all know those numbers, but they're not making 22. They're making 10 or 5, and they think that they don't even hide it anymore. They'll say in a plan to me, so my plan is I'm going to make 10 outgoing calls. Okay, well, that's about half of what you need to do to even get one shot at one. But they see it as a lot of calls with everything else they do. But Scott, Mike brings up something that's really kind of fascinating that I hadn't thought about before, which is the degrees of crappy, right? Like where do we draw that line? Like, to me, there's things that are bad for you, but you're still going to do it. Like me watching White Lotus. I know at some level it's perverting me, but I cannot wait for the next episode because it's that good. Like, are there crappy jobs that are worth some of your time? Mike makes one entree, which is if it's a hiring authority, although I guess there's crappy hiring authorities, but give me some degree, give me a spectrum on which I would make this crappy job decision.
So I would say I like crappy jobs, but I like really good clients also. And if all you're doing is getting one client, you're going to have a problem. I think even experienced recruiters should always be getting new clients. I look at it in 3 areas. Get more business, so that way you can get better business, higher quality margins. I've got one client, I send an invoice 10 days later, I'm ACH'd even though it's due 30. That's better business. They include me in their executive conference calls about what the firm's strategy is going to be related to and how can talent help that be achieved. That's a better client. More business gives you better business. And then eventually you want to get all the business, meaning you're the first one considered for the search. If it's a small company, you get all the business. You're the only one, but you got to have a funnel. And sometimes you get these crappy assignments. And sometimes there are points in every recruiter's life where I got nothing. I got to work on something. And as quick as you can, find 2 other organizations looking for the exact same person in the same market. Now you've tripled the odds or even more. And sometimes, and you know how this works, you can't predict where your money is going to come from. You'll take a search from a company. Here it is. You find a candidate says, I don't want to go there, but I'm looking to move. Maybe you can market me. Well, great. Here's 5 more options. Great. I'm going to talk to 3 of those. Well, I don't want to go there, but one of those 3 that you talk to in that process, that's the one that gives you the high margin search. And you got to go through that. So if you look at, here it is, it's the one search and that's it. I think you're stuck. But if you look at that, that could be a springboard to developing a niche. Also, I think you let the clients self-select. I had a client, we want you to work on this. It's a high priority. Terrific. Let's talk about that. Got the needs assessment. Let's talk about next steps. Terrific. What I'll do is send you a copy of my fee agreement. Go ahead and authorize that. Send it back. Once I get that, I'll start the search. Sounds great. They didn't do it. I'm not going to follow up.
Right.
That's a responsible adult that's in the leadership organization that told me he would execute and he didn't. I'm done. I mean, I'm really done because I don't need that. If I needed that, I might be a little bit, hey, can you get that to me? And so I think when you've got more business, what does that mean? I've got options. Next. All right. Who can I help out? And the gravitas, whoever needs it the least always wins. Right. And that's why, I love doing the work. I like talking about it. I like doing a little bit of coaching and training, but I like doing it because I get to see today, even in spite of all these changes with technology, it's all about the fundamentals, and especially in client development. I will tell you this, I think the biggest pitfall I see in the recruiting industry in this regard relating to client development is that people are not intellectually curious about how can I learn more about client development. That's one thing with my podcast, the Rainmaking podcast. I'm interviewing experts on client development. I'm being forced to read their books. I'm learning things. So I'll tell people listening, force yourself to read every day from a client development book, something that really teaches you these concepts. I know you know everything. I know you're billing $500K, but guess what? when you force yourself to go deep and learn new things, and you realize, well, maybe that sucky client isn't so bad if I can use that to springboard to other opportunities. That's my take on it, Danny and Mike.
No, I appreciate that. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about where I sort of, when I'm talking to a recruiter and they're saying, well, this job isn't great. Well, why isn't it great? And I'm looking for, do I let them keep working on it, or do I drop the hammer and say, if this is on your plan tomorrow, you and I are going to have a problem with each other? And I think it falls, everybody's biased, right? So when I was on a desk, this is my, God complex, I guess, coming through. But if you told me I can't find any of these people, they're so rare, they're so difficult, nobody can find them, nobody can find them. Well, you haven't worked with me yet. Now that's a fool's errand in a way, because if other recruiters can't find them, what makes me think I can find them?
Right. Yeah.
But I preferred that challenge. And I believe I'm not kidding myself when I say I got more success saying, well, there's 600 million people on LinkedIn. They got to be out there. Versus the one that I found incredibly disheartening, depressing, and not very useful is when I would take that crappy job, call candidates, and they would say, oh, is this so-and-so company? I already got 3 calls on that. I already got 4 calls on that. Or everybody I would submit, they already knew about. That to me, I can count on one hand the number of times that turned into a placement.
Yeah.
So I'd rather you tell me they can't find anybody than to tell me they've seen 47 people and they keep saying no, right? That to me anyways is a bigger fool's errand.
I took one of those. It was 38 people, and I'm like, but you haven't worked with Mike Gianta yet. And so I talked to a bunch of people like, oh, no, they're already interviewed there. And I'm going, this guy's perfect. So I get a hold of the hiring manager. Hiring manager was a great guy, returned every phone call, said I was not picky on the interviews. Like he was, if you looked at everything other than the fact that he was looking for 0.001% of the marketplace, and this was a red flag you'll hear. I'll know it when I see it.
Yes, that's red flag.
Yes.
You interviewed 37 people. What was missing? I'll know it when I see it, but I need this, and this. And I think I set up 3 interviews, and I was like, he was a really nice guy. And I go, you're looking for a clone of you.
Right.
And there's only one you. I don't know if you ever filled the position, but yeah, when you hear that, run. The other thing when you were talking about, okay, because we have, especially with our tenured people, you have intelligent adults, and you don't want to be, police-like.
Yep.
And there's always an element of letting them fail a little bit.
Yeah.
So they don't go, he doesn't, he's been off a desk for so long, he doesn't get it anymore. He doesn't understand. Even if they don't say that out loud, they say that in their head.
Oh yeah.
And,
my people say it out loud to me. Oh yeah.
They did in my office too. So I said, okay, here's the deal. I don't like it. And I go through the reasons. Find one person and see if they honor the boundaries.
Yeah.
Did they return the call? Did they set up the interview? Are they reasonable? To your point, both of your points, if you're then chasing going, oh, I know you're busy, but I sent this guy over 3 days ago and I haven't crap. Like you have all these check boxes. So I would let people build a partial search and pause, or even a lot of times call back. Part of our search process was, if you were the VP of sales, Danny, I'd say, I've just taken a ton of information for you. I'm going to huddle up with my team. I'm going to probably call you back sometime tomorrow for 5 minutes to dot the I's and cross the T's on a couple things so that we have enough depth. So my team has enough depth to do this the right way. And I purposely didn't set a time like to get on their calendar. I go, are you available tomorrow? If there's all day sales meeting or we on a plane or whatever. And then whenever they're earliest available, we'll call you when we get that all settled. I'll send you a note and do they get back the next day?
Yeah, that's right.
They would. Before we even do anything, if you're sniffing out a little doo-doo in the room.
Yeah. And Mike, I've got a couple of other points. I think that's great. People make judgments about where you spend your time based on the actions of other people, not their words. Same thing with candidates. Do they get you the resume when they said they do it? Do they get you the fee agreement when they said they do it? That if they do, they executed, they fulfilled an obligation. That means the risk is minimal compared to you never hear from them again. But one thing I'd recommend when you get a new client, I always recommend asking them this on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the priority level of filling it? Everybody's going to say 10. Then ask them this. Does that mean I should clear my desk off of my existing priorities and make yours my number one priority? Take my existing clients and searches, put them off to the side. And a reasonable person isn't going to let you do that if they're like, well, we actually do have somebody we're going to make an offer to. Oh. And so I think kind of qualify that. And then also I learned this from Lou Adler's book, Hire with Your Head. I mean, books on hiring are really boring, but he talks about performance-based interviewing. Take that to the search. If this person only accomplished 3 things and you'd call them a success, what are those 3 outcomes, those performance outcomes, those deliverables? And then they get to think granularly. If they're like, well, you know what? I don't have time for this. Oh, you just saved yourself some time. So those are some things I'd recommend. And then even finally, set expectations of the working relationship. And I always say it the same way I do with candidates. 2 things you can expect from me, Mr. Clyde. 1, I'm going to be transparent. If there's street intel that I hear about your company, I'm going to tell you about that. And then secondly, I'm going to be responsive to you. That's what you can expect from me. And that's what I need to have from you as well. Be transparent. If I present you someone that's not a fit, tell me why so I can make adjustments. And if I leave you a message, send you a text message, email, get back to me that day or first thing next business day, say the word because there's a window that could close on us. We might miss out on someone. And then I always say and here's a mini seminar, 2 magic questions. Does that make sense? Yes. Are you okay working that way? Yes. It's called principle of verbal agreements from Robert Cialdini.
Closed-ended questions. Yep.
Exactly right. And for people that haven't heard that, oh, wow, that's really going to help save a lot of time and help them mitigate that risk. So
I think what makes it hard for especially junior recruiters, but not just junior recruiters, because the recruiting industry is, replete with people pleasers. And it's this, that if you take the common denominators in jobs that you successfully fill and the common denominators among crappy jobs, on both lists is he or she was a really nice hiring authority who got back to me right away, took my calls, were very easy to work with, saw my people on both lists. So sometimes this need for affection and love and somebody treating me well hides the fact that this idiot doesn't know what they're looking for, isn't reasonable about the parameters of the search, and they like talking to you, but they're not going to pay you any money. And, I got over that as I got deeper into the business. I was able to make this distinction. And I should say that not all great recruiters feel this way. A lot of people argue with me about this, but none of my clients or candidates were really good friends of mine. I'm always amazed at some of my senior people that are going to barbecues at their client's house, or they know the candidates' birthdays for their kids. I'd like to think, empathetic and entertaining and helpful to them. But there was never any doubt why I was on the phone with them. So I didn't need your love. I didn't need your affection. I didn't need you to be nice to me. I made an awful lot of placements with clients who I knew did not like me, but they also respected the fact that all the good people seemed to come from me. And so we kind of deal with each other. And I would prefer working with them the next job than I would with somebody who saw 17 of my people, nicest guy in the world, asked me about my family. What a sweetheart. Both can be dangerous, and it's hard for a junior recruiter to see that, I think.
And that's when I was new, because I'm one of those people that grew up through little T trauma of needing and being a people pleaser, right? And I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I go to meetings 3 times a week. But for me, it took, Danny, like 8 or 9 years. Because when you talked about that, I was like, I needed them early. Not anymore. I needed them to like me. And not only did I want to make a fee, but it was important that they liked me in the process. And any kind of criticism, early on, I took very personally. But there was one hiring manager, I'll never forget, a guy named Charlie Spink with Hughes Land Systems. They paid a $7,000 flat fee. This is like early 90s. I cold called him for a year, and he finally gave me a job order. And very specific on what he wanted, very reasonable, lower fee than I'd like, but and he was tough, right, to your point. And first candidate I sent over, he grilled me on some of the specifics about his background, stuff honestly that I should have known. And I didn't. And he's like, look, Mike, I don't want to be an asshole, but you've been calling me for a year. I'm giving you a shot, because he gave me the exclusive and everything. You sound like a good guy, but if you ever call me so unprepared again, that's it. We're done. And I got off the phone. I was defensive, like what a jerk. And I'm like, and then this is where learning comes from for even tenure recruiters. Where's the truth in what he said? And it was all true. How did I not know those basic questions about his sales background? And for me, what it became, because that was like 2 or 3 years into the business, I'm like, how many hiring managers don't work with me and didn't give me the gift of that feedback? Right? Like those guys that you might not have liked.
Perspective.
Where personally there was friction. Maybe you didn't like is the wrong term, but personal friction is, you know what? They told you where you were off. Right. So you could adjust, versus them being a people pleaser and going, you know what? I'll get through the search. I'm just never going to use Danny again. Right. And so I became, when I would tell that story to every new hire, and I said, I'm going to be Charlie Spink when you present me candidates, because I go, that was the best 5-minute training I'd ever got in recruiting. I'm going to test you like you tested me, because I'm more blood.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, one last thing that I think would be helpful to the audience. There is a generation of recruiters who started 2019, 2020, who are shocked when they go through our BD module here. To them, BD is you search for postings and then you respond to the posting and you say either I got a guy for that or I'd like to work with you. And so the idea of cold prospecting seems, first of all, 2 steps removed and kind of crazy to them, because the job posting is there. So there's clearly a need. Is that a proper thing to do? And if so, is it something you do after you've done cold outreach to try to get the job early on before it's posted? Is it something you do 20% of your time? Is it stay away because conventional wisdom says if they're posting it, everybody has access to it. TA is working on it. They're already going to see all these people that you call. It's a waste of your time. I say that, but as I look at our business every year at Hobson, I'd say 5 to 10%, which is not a small number, comes from job postings that we followed up. So what's the protocol, Scott?
I'll tell you this. I'd say stay away from the cold in terms of client development. And think of it like this, game theory. How do you get better odds of a successful outcome? And I'd say if you look at any client that you get, there's 5 different avenues. And think of it like this. At the top of the list, the highest likelihood of getting business is from an existing client. That's easy. Do you keep in touch with them? Right? Is there money behind the sofa and the cushions that you're missing out because you're not keeping in touch with people that you did business with, even if it's 5 years ago? Believe me, they're not going to say, where have you been? They're like, oh, so good to hear from you. Right? And then even existing clients, oh, wow, how many other hiring managers are within this company? And so then below that, people that know you, that's the second highest likelihood of getting business. When you do MPC marketing, that's not cold business development outreach. That's me seeing if I can solve an acute problem with a specific organization about a specific candidate. Many times it doesn't go beyond, that's interesting. Thanks for keeping us in mind. Well, guess what? Since I've got you on the phone, what are some of the problems you have in and then also get this. This is where the money behind the sofa really is. Those people that you're talking with, if there's nothing you get out of that call, ask them this question. Well, Jerry, it was great talking with you. I'd love to keep in touch with you like every other month or so. Would that be okay? They're never going to say no. And then put that on your roll-up list. Call it your quarterly outreach or every other month. Friday afternoons from 3 to 5. You're calling those people. Some of them are going to pick up. We talked 3 months ago. I had some intel about the industry. I thought it might be interesting for you to hear about. When you get a chance, give me a call. Some of them won't, a lot of them won't, but some of them will. And those are not cold outreach. So you stack the deck in your favor. Third highest likelihood, those are referrals. Fourth highest likelihood, those are people that have heard of you. Thought leadership. Are you speaking at conferences? Are you sitting at panels? Are you doing white papers, et cetera, et cetera? And then finally, cold. The least likelihood of getting the best response is cold, yet that's where most people focus their time. Instead, draw a line between cold and those people that have heard of you and see if you can stay above that line.
By that definition, Scott, is a job posting cold?
That is not cold. That is a specific acute problem that needs to be solved. It's about that particular position.
So valid to follow up on that in your team.
It depends on the life cycle of where somebody is. It is, I would say, what are the odds? Not very high, but what else do you have? If you got nothing else, absolutely. It's a good place to at least start. That's what I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Mike, you agree with that as far as job postings?
Partially. One thing, just to tag on what Scott said about odds, which I agree with everything he said. You did a great training with me on my telesummit a few years ago on getting out of a slump. And the one thing you said in that I remember off the top of my head that I still train and quote you on is relatively simple. Kind of put together, like, that you talked about that recruiter that's in a slump, and we usually go, yeah, I just make more calls. It's like, no, they're hurting. Put together every job order you've taken in the last year.
Right.
And just start calling, because they need friendly faces. Like, and to Scott's point, that is stacking the odds. There's a relationship there. There's probably business there. One of the things Dan Sullivan talked about it during COVID when business was really tight. You can do this if you're in a personal recession, not the economy. If you're in a personal recession, is reach out to your best clients that you haven't worked with and offer to help. Hey, any insights I can give you on the marketplace? Any insights, I'm just trying. I know you probably, you don't have anything open, but Danny, you've been such a great client. A lot of our people are asking me about how the job market shifted, and I've got some insight and some data I'd love to provide to you just because you've been a great client. And then just listen to them, ask, that's what I was telling a group of people yesterday. Get them on the phone and go, look, if, have you had problems like with offers being accepted, and then give them a couple tips on how to close a candidate better, knowing they're never going to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
You guys go, what if they do it? But on the posting side, my belief is I see a posting. We're recording this on March 26th. I see a posting March 26th. I calendar it for April 26th.
Sure.
And it's probably specific enough. I reach out with an MPC. I find out who the hiring manager is, because a lot of times it's going to go to HR. Through my research, find out who the hiring manager, let's say it's Scott, and I call and I present a candidate that matches.
Mm-hmm.
And they might say, are you calling off my posting? No, I don't lie. You have a posting? I just make their statement a question. Because this is where I think we've talked about this on podcasts. We're perceived in many ways by both clients and candidates as magicians. How do they know this? Right. And then we show them you're a magician, Scott. So how do we show them? We show them our magic trick. Oh yeah, I saw you on a posting. Oh, I saw your profile on LinkedIn. Oh, right. Versus it's my job, Scott, to know that you have an opening. Oh, I heard through my network. My network is the posting, but I'm not going to say that. I heard through my network. The best card tricks you've ever seen when
word on the street.
How they did it. You're like, oh, that's not so special.
Yep, I agree with that. I think we get into trouble when we tell people not to follow up postings, because first of all, it's so easy, it's low hanging fruit, and the more niched you are, the more successful you're going to be. Because if you go and say, I saw your posting, I just filled 2 jobs like this, that's my sweet spot, then people are going to find some success. The problem comes when you think that is BD. It's similar to the difference between causation and correlation. Right? Causation is A causes outcome B, right? Smoking causes lung cancer. But correlation is when there's a relationship between A and B, but it doesn't necessarily cause the outcome. So, there's a correlation between smokers tend to have an increased incidence of alcoholism, but smoking doesn't cause alcoholism, right? And I think recruiters tend to confuse causation with correlation. They don't understand that these are 2 separate things. As long as you understand they're 2 separate things, that job postings are not BD. It is, I think as Scott says, it's better than a cold call. And if you're niched and you have a candidate, it's a smart thing to do. If that's 100% of your BD, your ratios are going to be atrocious, and you're going to work super, super hard and not make as much money as you could if you separated causation from correlation. There's money to be made in job postings, but job postings is not marketing.
And to the one caveat that I would have, and you just said it, Danny, is I've got 2 perfect candidates based on what I've seen. Same thing though, if the portal is HR, I want to figure out who the hiring manager is. I'm still not going to say I saw your posting. I'm just going to present 2 people like I didn't know.
Agreed.
And the same thing, you saw our posting, you have a posting, right? Like it's like, I heard through my network, you might need somebody like this. Again, same thing. It's because I think when you call off a posting, it's like the attorney handing, the estate attorney handing out business cards to the widow at the funeral, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, come on.
Right. But you're right. If they're struggling to fill it and it's been 30 days, then yeah, they're more likely to.
And every other recruiter by that point, because the ones that feed off postings, it's just like ants coming to ice cream. Like,
Right.
it's
just
a lie.
Yeah.
So they smother it and then they leave in a week.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Understood. All right. As always, appreciate you guys. And good luck to the audience doing BD and separating crappy jobs from what you really should be doing. And let us know if there's anything particular you guys want us to take on. And
Actually, just for
Sure.
might give people like some hope. What are you guys seeing? I know you're really niche, Scott, but you've got a ton of niches, Danny. Q1 2025, the status of, is there a headwind? Is it neutral? Is there a tailwind?
Yep.
And what's the change you guys have seen?
So I do M&A, corporate M&A, and finance people. Some of the M&A people, especially those that work with PE companies, have said their clients are like, let's see what happens with tariffs before they do more deals. But that's it. It's just a little bit of a blip. So that's the only thing I've seen,
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think going into January, there was a huge sort of enthusiasm, regardless of where you are in the political spectrum. There was this thing of, okay, we've made a decision. This is the way we're going. And they said the vibe session was over. This feeling of things are horrible over. And then, of course, as Scott said, with the tariffs and I think the Doge approach, for lack of a better phrase, it has cut into that. Consumer confidence is at its lowest since 2013. And the Atlanta Fed, as of last week, went from anticipating 4.2 GDP this year, which would be crazy good, to minus 2.8.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's a blip, as Scott said. It's going to take them a little time to realize the world's not falling apart. And if the tariffs to some degree are in negotiation and they find out that they're doing, 27% of all the tariffs they're threatening, and everybody calms down and the market comes back, then the underlying fundamentals, I think, are pretty good. But, for my personal firm, we're assuming it's going to be awful. And then if we're pleasantly surprised, great. Let's work hard and be pleasantly surprised. Let's not sit back and hope, because that doesn't work very well, in my opinion.
I'm kind of seeing, I think with our clients, it's more of that hiccup, almost looking to the left just a little bit, like askew. What's this going to mean? Because January, February were very, very strong across like all of our segments. And while there's a little hesitation, no one's saying it's gone down. Right. I think you have a little hesitation. They're already talking about softening tariffs. My beliefs are 99% irrelevant, but I believe it's a negotiating ploy that those tariffs keep getting pushed out and minimized and lessened, and then there's some give back. But from a standpoint, just to encourage I just like, since you and I, the three of us, are exposed to so many different people, that the ones that are sitting there because of this, like what Scott might call in their niche a blip because of tariffs and things like that, and Doge, to your point, Danny, it's a blip. It's not a like, oh, we're putting the brakes on, everybody stop doing everything.
Yeah.
Continue to move forward, because
It is a period of uncertainty. Business hates uncertainty.
Yep.
Recruiters hate uncertainty. Once there's a sense of certainty, regardless of what it is, then I think you'll see it return to a baseline, which was a pretty good baseline. Sure.
Even if things are bad, if people know, okay, it's bad, we know it's bad, that's better than we don't know what's going to happen. You're absolutely right.
Exactly. Well, that's your note. You know that the
But in recruiting, you can create your uncertainty.
exactly.
You can create. After 9/11, I did really well because I found pockets. You can always find those pockets and take control of it. Create your
During COVID, we brought all our clients just to create some, and probably for all of us, the greatest period, couple months there, April, May, June, like greatest uncertainty. And we just said, okay, our clients were at about a 11 to 13:1 marketing presentation to job order ratio, a job order they would work, not an opening that they would take, a search. And it spiked in April or May of 2020. The very peak for us was 36:1. To Scott's point, you can create okay, it's a pain in the ass. You got to talk to 3 times as many hiring managers to get a search. But the line, nobody's hiring, was bullshit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
once we got our community kind of dialed into that, and then it's very quickly de-escalated back to 13 by the fall. Right. So it's in those periods, to Scott's point, is in those moments, we're not seeing any change right now in our marketing presentation to job order ratio, just to encourage everybody.
Yeah. I think it depends on your niche. But there's always, as Scott said, there's always a ray of sunshine if you know where to look. For example, we have 2 offers out right now in my firm and our med device team, and the candidates are federal government employees, people from the FDA that are like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to wait till they let me go. You never could recruit somebody from the FDA ever to go private because they had great benefits and they had complete stability. And now all of a sudden they're like, get me into a company. So we have FDA candidates for the first time ever. So med device will do well. So if you follow the money in reverse and say, where are these government employees now marketable to? Now you've got a whole candidate base that you never had before. Now, is that me stretching to find good news? Maybe, but we got 2 offers. So it's real.
Offers are always good news.
Offers are good
always
news.
good.
All right, boys. Always appreciate you guys. We'll do it again next month. Thank you. Have a great day.